Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the UK Connection. And of course, sitting right beside me in the, let's see if I can get this right. Yes, in the Zoom. Hopefully that comes out the right way. It probably won't. So just in case, I'll do this as well. We've got Simon, Bray, and Steven Reid in the house as always. What's up, gentlemen? How are you?
I am good. I'm looking forward to talking about one of Simon's favourite bands.
No. Simon's favorite band. Not one of.
One of.
Simon's favorite band.
Wow. I got no issue with that whatsoever because I'm a huge fan. So, of course, we're talking about the mighty Lynyrd Skynyrd, right? One of the great Southern rock bands of all time. And yes, you heard that correctly. A member of the UK Connection who does not live in the USA, his favorite band is Lynyrd Skynyrd. And I think that's a really good thing for people outside of America to be fans of Southern rock. So we're going to do favorite and least favorite album and a wild card, of course, as we always do. So, but before we get to that, Simon's got something to tell us.
Do I? Is it about my beer?
Yes, of course.
Oh, thank God for that.
The beer, which I will tell everybody. So, before we tape these things, we usually powwow for a little bit. And we tend to not want to share our beers with each other. And at one point, we were just chit-chatting. And Simon goes to take a swig of his beer that he already poured. He's like, whoops, I better not do that. I saw that. I was watching. It looks quite lovely, I will say.
Yeah, I had a major league panic, beforehand when I just kind of appeared on the screen. When you were talking about me down my back, I was trying to find my beers, and I realised that they're all mostly outside now in the palace, and so I had to delve into what people gave me for my birthday, which was just a couple of weeks ago, and I have pulled out a Cumberland Golden Beer by Jennings, all the way up from the beautiful Lake District. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, it looks good.
It's a beautiful part of the world, and it's a very satisfying. Look at that colour. Look at that colour, everyone.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, see, that's the colour of that is the colour of beer. Isn't it?
It really is, isn't it? What colour is it? Beer.
Beer color.
Absolutely.
Simon was doing these. We were joking. Simon went off camera for a while before we were just chit chatting, and we were like, "Where'd he go?" Right? And then every so often he would do this kind of conjuring thing where his head would come back into the screen and then would disappear. Then he would come in from another angle. I was like, "Alrighty then." Horror movie season right here on the UK Connection, right? So, anyway, Steven, what do you got?
Well, I have got this. Okay, low. And then it says salt. And I kind of thought, if I picked up a health beer or something like that, it's called Long Road Home. Okay, it's a barrel-aged Scotch ale. Always struggle with Scotch, because we're Scots and people call us Scotch, but there you go. And it's a 10-year anniversary beer for this brewery, which I had never heard of before. Okay, I just liked the landscape of Scotland that we get on here, which is very pretty indeed. And it pours like this. Oh, look at this. And I have been resisting this because the aroma is phenomenal. I poured it and I've been, I want that now. So I'm looking for it. It must taste as good as it smells. It must. Oh, yeah. That is the real deal. It's smooth and it's strong. Loads of flavour in there. The back of the tin says things like, or somewhere I've read coffee and things. I don't actually like the taste of coffee. I can kind of understand where it's coming from with this, but it's really, really good. Absolutely fantastic. This is great.
Cool. Well, I'm going to disappoint because I didn't have time to go out and buy any new beer, but I'm drinking a beer that I love, so that's good enough for me. I'm going back to some Warsteiner German Pilsner because I always have Warsteiner in the freezer and the fridge. So, and I'm going to have it in my Clemson Brewery mug, Middletown, New York, right down the street from Rock Fantasy, owned by Steve Keeler. So, in my opinion, any time is a Warsteiner time. So, that's all I got. But I'm happy with it. So, cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Always good. Always good.
That is full flavored. It really is.
You have the look on your face like, man, this is better than I thought it was going to be.
It's really good, yeah. Because I think was it last week that I had one, or was it the week before? I can't remember. Where there was bits and things floating in at the end.
Yeah, that was not good.
That was really not good. And I was kind of thinking, have I hit one of those runs? But no, this is really good. Because
Cool.
I have another one from that brewery that I'm frightened of now. I will drink it on the show, and I will not inspect it first. We'll just have to see what happens.
There you go. And I promise I'll have something new next time, folks. So I will.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So Simon's going to kick us off with his first two favorites, or so I think he is.
Well, you know, if you've seen my social media postings, you know that I've got quite a few Skynyrd and Skynyrd related discs. You've seen that, haven't you?
Well, I was going to say that you had to retire that ironing board of metal.
I did indeed, and I had to put it on the in the lobby of justice.
The lobby of justice. Yeah. That sounds like a Skynyrd album, doesn't it?
Does indeed. A latter day Skynyrd album, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah. So I have stuff to choose from that's fairly obvious.
You miss out when you don't follow these guys on Twitter. I have no fucking idea what they're talking about. And obviously they're not going to fill me in. So anyway, Simon, go on.
So suffice to say that, you know, if a Skynyrd player played on something, I've got it. You know, be it the Vision, the Christian album that Billy Powell appeared on, I've got it. I've got it. Yeah.
Wow.
I've also got, before I keep going, because you know I can pop on about this endlessly. This is the most expensive record I ever bought. Incense and Peppermints by the Strawberry Alarm Clock, and I bought it for about 25 quid in Blackpool about 30 years ago. It's utterly fucking unlistenable. It's just like the least Simon friendly thing ever. And 25 quid was a lot of money. Even, you know, 30 years ago, it was a lot of money, wasn't it?
Are you saying that £25 is the most, or is it?
It was at the time.
Taking into account the inflation.
At the time, at the time, you know, records were not retailing for anywhere near that much, were they?
No.
Anyway, it's awful. But I just felt like I needed to show it. Hey, let's go with my favourites, shall I? And I am prepared to name this very record that I'm about to hold up as not just being my favourite Skynyrd album. Not just in my opinion, it's their best. It's also, and I think we can all agree on this, the best album of all time. I think that ends that conversation. Yeah, Stephen, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's better than the latest CJ and the Wild Hearts or whatever the cold album. It's better than all those.
That modern fangled stuff.
Yes, absolutely. It's just I believe this band have actually made at least 3 solid gold classic albums. This one, Second Helping, Street Survivors, and do you know what? I was listening to Give Me Back My Bullets today, and that was awesome. But let's focus on this, shall we? Oh God, what a record! It's just brilliant. All the way from I Ain't the One all the way through to the end of Freebreak. It's got Simple Man. It's got Tuesday's Gone. There's just so much heft to those songs.
Oh yeah.
You know, just the writing, the playing, the lyrics, everything about it is fantastic. Give Me 3 Steps. Hey, I am that blonde-haired guy in the bar. You know, that's kind of was me when I got into Skynyrd. You know what I mean? Around about 17, 18 years old, going out doing stupid things. Yeah, Poison Whiskey. Oh, yeah, just so good. But another thing that it did, you know, let's be honest, everybody knows what the album sounds like, especially our good friends in America who tend not to watch us. But anyhow, what it kind of did is it really got me into reading liner notes, because you know I'm interested in that kind of stuff. You know, who is Roosevelt Gook? Or is it Al Cooper? Sort of thing. Oh, where Robert, you know, it went on to say, you know, Robert Nix. Oh, who did he play with? Oh, I'll go and investigate that. You know what I mean? And it really kind of set me off on that sad, lonely path of going down that rabbit hole, thinking, well, what's he played on? So that must be good. And that must be good. But you know,
rabbit hole that we all have
like,
gone down many times. Yep.
Oh, it's my idea of heaven.
yeah. It's like the young people creating these stupid little playlists and things like that. But you know, I love the lightning on the cover. I like that it's not really, you know, exactly the band that played on the album, because Leon Wilkinson's not on the album, is it? Ed King's playing bass. He's playing guitar by the time it comes out. You know, I like the story. I like it. I love the scratch on the back. Cigarettes will kill you, my young friends, but you know, just so cool. Look at that bone. Oh, look at the logo. Oh, just everything about it is fantastic. And then, what's the record called? Is it called pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd? Yeah, you know, is it pronounced? What is it? You know, it's just so good, and just awesomely, brilliantly fantastic, and it kind of set me off a path for quite a while. I thought, this band doesn't have 3 guitars. What's wrong with this? Yeah. Yeah. So it is my favorite record of all time, probably by some distance. But do you know what? You know, when we talked about Bad Sides of Hell last week, I don't think I need to listen to this because it's in there. It's part of me. It's part of my DNA. I just, you know, I like to listen to it, but I don't need to, because you know there was a period where I listened to it roughly all the time. So yeah, that's my favourite. But let's not forget, shall we, my young friends? We're not necessarily talking best, are we? We're talking favourites.
That's right.
Yes, we are. And I like all eras of this band. And I know there are some people that think September the 20th, 1977, that's the end of Lynyrd Skynyrd. There are people out there, Stephen, who think that.
There are, yes, indeed. Yes, there are.
And they have a right to.
Obviously, we call these people.
They have a right to. They'd be wrong.
They do. They do indeed. They absolutely do. But a record that means an awful lot to me is God and Guns. A fantastic record. I just, do you know what? I always say this, but I listen to albums from front to back. Well, this album works perfectly from front to back. I've been listening to it in the car this week, and I've got irked when I had to stop and go and do something and get back in the car. I keep it playing from exactly the same place, but I just want it to play all the time. You know what I mean? And it's for me, it's the best of their later period albums. You probably both noticed that at some point I've signed emails off to both of you saying still alive, still unbowed, still unbroken.
Yes.
Yeah. What I do find absolutely fascinating about, if you go from there to there, is the lyrical concerns.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yes. Ronnie Van Zant's writing was quite liberal in many ways. He didn't like guns, he didn't like drugs, you know, wasn't that keen on putting people on the moon instead of feeding people. But over here, we've gone straight to Fox News, haven't we? Yeah, that's what, you know, people kind of do as they get older. They kind of, in the main, drift rightwards, don't they? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because, do you know what? That Ain't My America, what absolutely banging tune. But there's that sense of, wasn't everything great in the past? And you know, I lived through the 70s and 80s in the UK, and what's the way I'm looking for? No. it really wasn't. I'm not hankering back for those times, but it's done with such commitment. You know, Southern ways. You know, simple life. You know, we could leave our doors wide open and all that stuff. No, you couldn't. Certainly not here. You really couldn't. But you know, it's that sense of nostalgia and throughout the albums. Skynyrd Nation, what a tune! I cannot fathom out why, when I've seen them live, they always play that about fourth. What a great opening tune! You know, you don't have to play "Working for MCA" first every time, because you haven't worked for MCA for about 40 years.
That's right.
MCA wanted
you.
You know, you'd have come back to them. But unwrite that song. Oh, Johnny, it's so sad. You sat there in bed, and sometimes you're crunching gears. You know, unwrite that song. Oh. Yeah, this is great. And you know, there's the preoccupation with all things southerny and swampy that most of these heritage southern acts do now on Floyd. It's a great record, and at the risk of repeating myself, albums sometimes give you a time and a place of where you were listening to and where you enjoyed. Bizarrely enough, we took a trip to the Canary Islands about 12 years ago, and both me and child number one were listening, ignoring everybody else, but each at the same time listening to this album and ignoring everybody else. And I just had this vivid memory of my eldest child just going something along the lines of "God and guns." You know, I've at least raised one of my children correctly. 50% of my children are working well. So, yeah. So those are my favorites, but this one is also the greatest record of all time. Yeah.
All right, Steven, I'm really interested now to hear where we go from there.
Yeah, that's not really quite easy to follow. It's all about the journey, isn't it? All about the journey. Simon's journey is engaging and fascinating and wonderful to listen to, and I respect it and I enjoy it. This is the Lynyrd Skynyrd that I own. This is it. This is the whole thing, right? This is it. Okay. Now, to be fair, I have had two of these albums separately. I did sell them once I got this. Okay. Because this is latter day Skynyrd. So it's about the journey. I have seen Lynyrd Skynyrd, really enjoyed them. I know all of the big hits. I have heard all of the albums a good few times because lots of people that I was friends with were into Skynyrd. Do I love them? No. Do I really like them? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But my journey really, at the risk of echoing Simon, is latter day Skynyrd here. Now, I appreciate that Simon saying that the debut is not the be all and end all, but it's the best album in the world ever. I will pick up this ahead of it any day of the week because it speaks to me. This is God and Guns for anyone that hasn't realised that it's the same as Simon was holding up. This is the kind of thing that I like. This is kind of informed by the music that Skynyrd informed. Do you know, it's almost like they walked back into a scene that they had created and thought, we could do this, but we can maybe do it better. There's bands like Blackstone Cherry, and there's lots of bands around it. They don't all sound like God and Guns, but you can hear where their ideas came from. You can kind of get that feel in the tone. And why would the band that kind of set all that up not come back and go, well, we own this. Why not do it? And if you're going to do it as well as this, then why would you not go do it? I mean, Still Unbroken and Simple Life were the singles off this in the UK. I heard them on Planet Rock back when I could hear Planet Rock. And it made me go out and buy the album. That's how good those songs were. I absolutely love them. They're just so good. Skynyrd Nation, it's so good. As Simon has mentioned, though, it does kind of set the tone for at least half of the lyrics, if not more, on most of the Skynyrd albums since 1991 onwards. It really is kind of like, we're one of you guys, we're all part of the same thing. We just happen to be on the bus and on the stage and you all worship us and, spend all your money on us and you've made us famous and all this kind of stuff. And you're not, but we're all the same, really. That's kind of the tone of the lyrics. I find them a little bit hard work. And yeah, the politics on here, not really my kind of cup of tea. Not really too surprising. We don't carry many guns round Tayside in Scotland. Not that Tayside's a thing anymore, but there you go. Yeah, Unwrite That song. I mean, it's kind of modern country, and I do get that. I don't really like modern country. Man, oh man, it's good. The lyrics are great. And yes, That Ain't My America. That's a really in-your-face song. Absolutely phenomenal. I love this album. I really love this album. I listen to it a lot. I like it as much today as the day that I first heard it, and I liked it a lot the day that I first heard it. So this is no slight against early Skynyrd. I just think that what's come since, it clicks more with what I listen to. It falls more into my wheelhouse. But I like, as we'll discover when we get to least favourite, I like the whole thing. But where my favourites fall just happen to be somewhere else. So there was lots and lots of homework for me to do. And the enjoyable thing for me was discovering that there's very little here not to like. But yet again, I've gone for something new. I don't have to hold up. So I've gone for 1999's Edge of Forever, which I didn't really know very well prior to this. Okay, so I knew the original stuff, thank you, Simon, and still enjoy all of it. But when I heard this just over the last couple of weeks, this is the one where I've kind of thought, well, I need to listen to everything so I'm really informed. And I keep thinking, but I quite like to listen to that Edge of Forever again. It's really, really good. So this is from 1999. And yes, same again, you can feel it kind of, to me anyway, it informs a whole swathe of kind of American bands and British and European bands that have kind of followed this sound since then. And I just think that it's really strong. Working Preacher Man. I mean, Jim Petterick co-wrote Through It All. It's not what most people would call classic Lynyrd Skynyrd, but it works for me. And along with, I haven't put it in my wildcard for a specific reason, but along with Vicious Cycle, which I also really, really like. It was the one that was just couldn't quite break through into this top two. I need to go out and buy albums from this era and get more than what I've got in this box set, because this is really in my wheelhouse, more so than I anticipated, even though I really like God and Guns and should therefore have just gathered up everything from around that time. So yeah, this has been really enjoyable for me. I've enjoyed all of it. I've enjoyed the early stuff. I don't connect with it in quite the same way. I don't have a history with it. I don't have the journey with it. It maybe doesn't, and you can maybe spell it R-A-W-K. It maybe doesn't rock enough for me, because it rocks in its own way, but it's not heavy. Does that make sense? And I'm not a massive Southern rock fan. Blackfoot are fantastic, I mean, but I don't dislike it. I always think, oh, that's good, but I wouldn't necessarily rush out and buy it. The latter day Skynyrd stuff I've discovered that I should have rushed out and bought it. So that's my favourite too.
Yeah, I think the two are vastly different, which I think you just explained. They really are. And I think for, God and Guns is a terrific album. And I, to this day, don't understand why the record company didn't market that album towards these modern day country pop fans, because half that album is ready-made for that audience. And as Simon mentioned, Skynyrd were doing that a long time ago. I mean, they basically influence a lot of those bands that are doing that sort of thing now. I think, though, that, and you brought it up, Steven, I think some of the lyrical content scares some people away. It really does. I mean, here, especially here, I've heard that many times. Yeah. That people who are Skynyrd fans and refuse to buy their new music is because they're just like, oh God, I can't stand what they're singing about anymore, right? It's laying on a little thick, and I would even say that a little bit. But the songs are catchy and accessible, and hits written all over them. So I agree. I think the newer stuff is extremely underrated and underappreciated. And then you get the people who are like, oh, it's not Skynyrd anymore because there's only one original member. There's a lot of people, especially here, who have major issues with that, calling them like a glorified tribute band and so on and so forth. But man, you go see them live, they play a hell of a show, right? And is it their fault that so many people have died in the band? I mean, in their history, it's, these guys want to go out and make a living. They're playing the songs we want to hear. It sounds great. They kick ass, whatever. That's a story for another day. So I have a long history with this band, a long history. So of course that's going to influence my picks here in a major way. I'm going to start off with my number 2 favorite, which my number 2 generally fluctuates between 2 or 3 albums. But the last couple of years, I go to Street Survivors, which is the album right before the plane crash. This is the one and only album with Steve Gaines on third guitar. This is terrific. I really strongly believe that if there was no plane crash, and this lineup had continued on and released more records, they could have been the biggest band on the planet, because I think they were kind of going in that trajectory. Steve Gaines brought so much to the table here. Great songwriter, killer guitar player, good singer as well. I mean, What's Your Name, That Smell, I Know a Little, you got that right. So many great songs on here. This album grooves, it kicks ass. It's melodic, it's memorable. I'd argue they were a little heavy at times, Stephen, but they're not Blackfoot heavy. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I was going to mention that at some point, and this is as good a point as any, that is undoubtedly my favourite from the initial 5 albums, I think it is. That's my favourite. That and, is it Nothing Fancy? Yeah. Those are the two, and they do rock. Yeah. They do rock. I'll absolutely give you that. And I must admit, I'm saying I'm not going to rush out and buy the early stuff. I maybe do need Street Survivors because that's really, really good. Like that a lot.
Get the deluxe edition if you can still get it. It's
What else is on it?
It's got a second disc, which is the original recordings of all this, because they recorded this album twice.
Okay.
So it's got the original Criteria Studios album, so it's a little bit different. And then it's got a whole, not a whole live concert, but a whole bunch of live recordings from 1977. Well worth having.
Okay.
Well worth having. My number one, like with Simon, there was never a question with this, the debut. To me, this is one of the great debuts of all time, perhaps the greatest Southern rock album of all time. And the track list is absolutely legendary. Simon's already done it, so I'm not going to go. But I mean, I Ain't the One is one of the greatest openers in rock history. What a killer, killer song. And, you know, I even, to this day, I've heard Freebird a million times. It's like the big joke in this country. It's like, how Freebird is one of the most overplayed rock songs of all time. For me, when that guitar solo starts, I'm listening. I don't care when it is. The beginning is like, okay, whatever. But man, when that guitar solo kicks in, they got me for the millionth time. It doesn't really matter. So and I tell you, the balls of a band, a brand new baby band, putting out an album like this that looks like this. I mean, it speaks volumes of how they're just of attitude, right? And just like, we're gonna go take over the world, man, and deal with it, right? That's what this whole album screams. Amazing stuff. And that's my number one. Not even close. So back to Simon for the bad ones, or the less than good great ones.
Nope. I'm nothing if not a discernible critic. There is one turkey for me in the catalogue. I like, love all the rest of it. Not that keen on Vicious Cycle. Not that keen on Last of a Dying Breed comparatively. But Gobble Gobble Gobble, Checky, Endangered Species. Little bit late to the unplugged scenario. That train choo-chooed out of the station well before Skinner got on board, didn't it? What do we want? Muted version of classics. Yay. That's what we want, isn't it? Just no. Whoever thought, what we really need is an acoustic version of Heartbreak Hotel.
Oh.
I know. Have you heard it, Stephen?
It's so bad.
Terrible, isn't it?
It's not the worst song in the whole catalogue. It is. It's that I struggled to get to the end of that. First time I heard it. Oh wow.
I listened to this and then I put The Last Rebel on afterwards. Both read about the same time, and one of them's really good, and one of them is awful. I no, don't do it, fellas. No, Poison Whiskey, new to it. Sweet Home Alabama, why? Saturday Night Special. The originals had so much bite, and there's no. There's one turkey. The one turkey. The cover's awful as well.
Oh yeah.
And the band. I'm not opening up the band picture. Is just shocking, and I'm opening it up. The band picture in the middle is just,
I've never seen it. Please, can you hold it up?
Well,
wow, yeah, that's really bad.
It really is, isn't it?
That's really bad.
I'm going to assume they were all there at the same time. I'm going to assume that's Mike Estes, who played guitar on the album. Who, I consider to be my mate because I've met him and because follow each other on Twitter. But no, just really, just nothing about. There's virtually nothing about this that I like, and they are, as I said, by a very, very long way, my favorite band. But this one, it hasn't been out for a while. It got played today. It's going back. And it's not coming out to play, possibly while I'm still breathing.
So is that it? Just one?
That's it, just the one. Okay.
All the rest are good. I do, however, have an absolutely enormous pile of wild cards.
Oh my.
Oh, that's good news.
I just couldn't be asked to scoop them up after I put them out on the floor for the picture. Also, not that I'm really, really lazy, but just over there are the Survivor albums from when we did that. I am not a lazy person.
from when we did the Survivor.
Survivor.
That was a long time ago.
That's a year ago, Simon.
Yeah.
I can hear your record collection cry.
Yeah.
They're all like, please put me back. Please, Simon, there's dust accumulating from all this damn work you do in the house. Please put me back.
Do you know that for In the Prog Seat last week, last week, this week, Tuesday, that one of my choices was Max Webster. Now, for whatever reason, I filed that album incorrectly. Oh, the panic that went through my head because I could not find that album. And I knew the mental tick that I did. M and X meant that it went at the end. There is an A in between. I do understand. I can alphabet. There are lots of CDs out there just to prove it. Okay. But the panic that went, and I thought to myself, how does anyone that doesn't file things away find anything? I mean, it took me 20 minutes to find one album. And I was sweating by the end of it. I could barely touch the records because I was like, I need to go and wash my hands first.
Now you know what I go through on Mondays when I talk to Chris Allo. When Chris Allo was like, "Oh, I've been out in my garage looking for a couple albums for the last 3 hours," and I'm like, "What?" It's like it should never take you that long to find anything.
No.
But when you don't put everything away and order,
so I forget that I've got stuff. Do you remember? I forgot that I had the there it is. See the box set.
Oh,
the
yes.
box set.
That's nice.
I forget that I've got it, but once I'm reminded, I know exactly where it is, and it's not with the rest of the Skynyrd stuff.
I'm sure it's not.
It's like Steven Reid. It's in the box set collection.
Well, no. See, this is still filed under L. I mean, these just can't fit where the CDs go. This stuff. And I don't like these sets in with the vinyl. CDs set in the vinyl like. Hence the vinyl goes out. Anyway, it works in my head. It makes me feel good about myself. Right, so least favourites. I can choose two, but I must admit that I've gone for the obvious ones here. I am shooting fish in a barrel or whatever the phrase is. This is straight down the line. It's dead easy. I know that my favourites might be viewed as contrarian, and I have possibly been viewed as that in the past few weeks. I am genuinely seeing it how I see it over all the things that we've spoken about the last few weeks. Endangered Species, which I thankfully cannot hold up here, is really bad. It's really bad. That was the first time I heard it was the start of this week. Wow, it's really bad. I don't really love Sweet Home Alabama. Yes, the guitar solo is absolutely fantastic. The rest of it, yeah, even if taking out the fact that I haven't heard it all that often, there are so many better songs in the catalogue that it kind of pains me that this is the one that everybody knows. But I get why. I do get why. But what it doesn't need to be is soft and fluffy. It does not need to be this comfortable thing that we can all kind of lounge on and go, don't we know this? Isn't that great? It is meant to have some bite about it. It is meant to have some kind of danger about it. That's why the guitar solo comes in and picks you up and throws you across the room. That's what that's about. So even if you have heard it too many times and you get to that point and you think, oh, it's just this song again, and then it goes wallop, and you're right back in there going, as Peter says, you have to listen because it's so good. So let's do a watered down version that just has none of that in there. Why do bands kill their own songs? I don't understand, because they do it right across this album. It's really bad. But yeah, and I hate to just highlight the songs that Simon has mentioned, but Heartbreak Hotel on this album. People, honestly, you deserve to hear this version. Everyone deserves to hear this version so that they can never listen to this song in the same way ever again. They will go and find their Dred Zeppelin album and discover that actually the Elvis reggae Led Zeppelin version is much, 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 much better than what Skynyrd did with it.
Sad but true.
Okay, and I actually quite like the Dred Zeppelin album, but there you go. But it's so bad. It's almost like it's sung for laughs. It's dangerously bad, really bad. So yeah, Endangered Species is actually the only thing in the whole catalogue that I don't like, really don't like. But I've also gone for, obvious again, Christmas Time Again. As Christmas albums go, yeah, okay, it's all right. Do you know, it's a Christmas album nonetheless, and I do not ever need to hear southernified versions of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, or Run, Rudolph, Run. I just don't. I don't need to hear them. There is no excuse for it. I know it's a bit of fun. I know it's intentionally throwaway, but they still expected people to pay for Santa Claus in a pickup truck on the front of it. They still expected people to do that. They didn't just hand it out and say, this is for fun, guys. They expected people like you two to part with cash for it and then say, aren't we all in this together, guys? No, not on this occasion. I'm absolutely not. And the originals that are on it, they suck. They're not really good.
Skynyrd Family Christmas Time. It's a classic.
Yes, of course it is.
A younger idiot generally believes it's not Christmas until he's heard me play that.
Well, I do believe that social services will be at your door soon.
He's 28.
Well, that's usually quicker than they manage it normally, so that's okay. Right. Okay. Yeah. Those two obvious choices, I know it's a bit weak and it's a bit lame. I genuinely can't, even as a guy that doesn't know this catalogue back to front, I can't pick anything else and put these as least favourites. There isn't another album across the whole catalogue that I think, do you know what? This is quite weak. There isn't another one. It's amazingly consistent. Really impressed.
Yeah. For the record, I listen to the Christmas Time Again CD every holiday season, and I have since it first came out. I think it's fun. Yeah, I know. It's fun. I don't know. I like it. But then again, I don't mind listening to Christmas music. So anyway, on to my least favorites. We're going to go for the trifecta here. Endangered Species, which ironically is the only Lynyrd Skynyrd album that I do not own because there is no need to. It is terrible. I'm also not a fan of let's take our classic songs and acoustify them. I don't like that when any band does that. I am not a fan of the whole concept of it, and this is just terrible. I love all these songs, the original versions, but man, this is just bad. So that is my one. That's the really bad one. The other, I picked a least favorite. Another one, I don't think this is a terrible album. I don't think it's a great album. I think it's one of their weaker albums. I went with The Last Rebel. It's got some good stuff on it. I think Born to Run, the closer, is terrific. I think the title track is terrific. They're both really cool, like kind of slow builder songs. They got attitude. I really like the way the instrumentation on the whole album is really good. My problem with this album is like there's too many like kind of mid-paced Southern boogie tracks and a couple of bland ballads. I think it's just missing some of the bite of some of the other albums around this time period. I think a lot of the other albums that came out around it are stronger. It's not really bad. It's not all that good in my opinion either. Like I said, a couple good songs. The rest of it, just kind of meh for me. But I love the lineup. I still like the band from this time period. I like all the latter period ones. I mean, 1991 is a really smoking album, and one I'm going to talk about in a minute. But so yeah, this is my other least favorite. Again, not terrible, just not really great. But yeah, that freaking Endangered Species fiasco. Whew, keep it.
No. Tesla have a lot to answer for.
Oh man, it's awful.
I love that album, by the way. I love 5-Man Acoustical Jam. That's a story for another day.
Yeah. All right, Simon, back to you.
I was going to be a smart ass and choose the Steve Gaines album. I was going to be a smart ass and choose
and you would be okay for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, because the Alan Collins band album sold about 3 copies, didn't it? I have no idea this got into. Wow, Stephen.
Like the cover, yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, like that a lot. Love the font.
Cartoony backs.
Yeah, I've never heard that, but I approve.
I was under no circumstances going to choose Artemis Pyle's albums because they're not very good. I do, however, weirdly really like Love Your Man by the Rossington Band, and I'm aware that it's actually a bit shit, but I really like it. But what I am going to choose is I'm going to choose the massively underrated 20. I love this record. I believe it's difficult to get hold of now, either streaming or whatever. Apart from the shockingly bad cover,
yep,
which somebody's failed the media studies coursework there, haven't they? That's just not good. Yeah.
At least they got to use it for the album cover.
Yeah. And hey boys, how southern are we? What's that on a fucking tractor? That's how southern we are. But I saw them on this tour. They were magnificent. Huey Thomason's in the band. Ricky Medlock's in the band, and it's just chock full of great songs. We Ain't Much Difference, brilliant. Bring It On, Voodoo Lake. See, they do like to do that kind of swampy thing. There's a theme throughout older records, you know. But it does have Home Is Where the Heart are. Home Is Where the Heart Is, which is just so good. So very, very good. The piano work on that is just magnificent. It's just like the warmest, cuddliest, loveliest song in the world. I just love it so much. Blame It on a Sad Song. They can do this kind of country balladish shit when they want to. You know, and yet this was a period when, you know, these records were selling in their, what, dozens maybe? You know, I mean, this was on SPV, wasn't it? But, you know, there was a period where they were, you know, for Edge of Forever, where they were on CMC International, which is where classic rock bands went to die, isn't it? And I assume that's why some of these records are quite difficult to get hold of, because they went belly up, didn't they? But this is such a lovely record. I really love this record. And again, time and a place. I once got dragged to the horse racing. Let me tell you how much I like horse racing. I fucking hate horse racing. I hate horse racing with every fiber of my being. It's both cruel and boring. Yes. Really dull. And the only thing that kept me going was that I was driving, so I got to choose the tunes. And I just played this all the way up to Cartmel and all the way back. Yes, indeed. Really annoyed Mrs. Simon, but it's such a lovely record. It really, and I mean that in a good way. It's a really warm sound. So yeah. It's a warm sound, and it's the one that's got the version of Traveling Man on with Johnny and Ronnie. You know, it's relatively interesting to read how they did that and how they baked the vocals from one more from the road. It's really excellent, underrated Skynyrd album, and I like it. And what's more, I've got a really shit ticket from when I saw them that's tucked away. Yeah,
that's really bad. My Skynyrd ticket, which is in a folder over there, is equally boring. It's green and white in the same way yours is yellow and white.
I would point out that was more entertaining than Bruce Dickinson was that night. So let's park that, shall we? Really. I was going to choose Edge of Forever, but you've already alluded to it. And Tomorrow's Goodbye. You know, what a great environmental song.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of flies at odds with the, you know, the lyrical contents of the other stuff. But I would very much like to guide everyone in the world towards First and Last.
Okay, so what's this then? I don't know this.
This is a record. That's right. An album that came out after the plane crash, where they hoovered up. That's really cool. Gatefold sleeve.
Nice.
Love that. Where they hoovered up some of the outtakes from the early years. I mean, obviously, they brought out collectibles and other things later, where they really hoovered up the Muscle Shoals time. But you know, it's where I first heard Down South Junkin', Preacher's Daughter. You know, the guitar work on that, and Lend a Helping Hand. They scintillate some heavy shit.
Okay, so should I go and listen to that one? Where would that fall? Knowing the early ones I've liked.
Yeah.
Is that something that I should be getting into?
Yes. There's even 2 songs sung by Ricky Medlock.
Okay. So I'm intrigued now.
Yeah. I mean, they're very hippy-dippy bullshit kind of songs, but nonetheless, you know, and I bet Ricky can't sing that high anymore. Very confident they can. But, you know, was I right or wrong? You know, you know, it's one of those first-person narrative songs where he left home, he got fame, he came back and went to find his family. Oh, and they're all dead. Cheery as fuck. Really cheery. But, you know, it's just really great song. And that shot on the back is just so sad. Given what happened to that lineup, you know, just really is, because it's the first original lineup ish, yeah, and the last. And it's a really excellent record. And so you think, how did Was I Right or Wrong and Lend a Helping Hand, and why not? You know, somebody's heard some Clapton, haven't they, at that point? Why were those songs not on the original albums? How good was the shit that they threw away? So those will be my wild cards.
I apologize, guys, for going off mic for a bit. We're kind of dealing with the situation here. So,
Well, right. So for me, I think that people will be painfully aware that I have not highlighted a single album from the original 5. And the rationale for that is that, as I mentioned for favourites, I connect musically with a different era. The first 5 are way too good to suggest that they could ever be least favourites. I personally can't put any of them as a wild card because I don't quite know what's wild about them. Do you know, this remarkably good and consistent albums? I don't actually mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. I mean as in they're not albums that are out there. Peter always says that he likes his wild card to be somewhere that kind of sits in the middle. I kind of go my 2 favourites. I like all the modern stuff, and then the early stuff just slots right in there. And then the ones I don't like, I could just about touch the floor with them. There's a massive gap between all of it and the 2 albums that are nonsense. But they're nonsense because they're novelty albums, not because they're bad. But there was no reason for this to be any good. There was absolutely no reason for the self-titled of 1991 or Lynyrd Skynyrd 1991. What's it called? I don't know. They don't know. Nobody knows. There was no reason for this to be any good. After what had happened and the length of time that it took to come away with anything else, and the resistance that they came up against, lots and lots of people. I did buy this when it came out. Obviously, that's not the version that I bought at the time. But I did buy it when it came out. And I really couldn't understand why there was so much resistance to it. Quite a lot of hatred towards it. A lot of love too. Lots of people did like it. And it got quite a bit of kudos, you know, because it is. Well, it's really good. It's what it is. It's really, really good. It's a rocking album. I think it's a heartfelt album. I think it's done for the right reasons. I just think it's really, really good. And it really could have been a disaster. There was no reason why this would work, you know? But I just think that the whole thing, Smokestack Lightning, that's how to kick an album off. Yeah. Southern Women, pure and simple. It's just a great song. So a great song, it really is. I've seen enough. It really stands out. I like the whole thing. I liked it then. I like it now. And yeah, there was every reason for this to be a horrible record that should never have been made. And it could have proved all the critics right. But a lot of them stand by that opinion, that it's not Lynyrd Skynyrd and they shouldn't have done it. And everything that's come since should never have existed. As a non-hardened fan, I couldn't disagree more because the music has been good. And that's the only bit that matters. The story is legendary, mythical, true, all of those things. Do you know? But the bit that matters is the music any good? Oh yeah, the music's really good. So why is there a problem? So yeah, that's my wild card.
Music is very.
I would say. Sorry. I saw them tour the 1991, obviously 1992, even though all the merch said 1991. And they did play quite a lot of 1991. And then whenever I've seen them since, they played virtually nothing post 1977. It's almost as if the fact that, in a very real sense, nobody really bought them. They thought, shit, nobody wants to listen to this. We're going to have to knock out the same 12 songs as if we're Journey, you know, sort of thing.
Well, I mean, that's the problem right there. It's because a lot of old school Skynyrd fans don't even bother listening to these albums. I was just going to, a perfect extension of what you're saying, Simon, is like my album that I picked for my wild card. I saw them on this tour and they played, I think, 3 songs from this album. They don't play 3 songs from any of the new albums anymore since this day. Mine is Vicious Cycles, which I think Vicious Cycle is a terrific album. Right.
Yep, really good.
To me, again, my wild card generally, it's either something off the beaten path or it sits right in the middle of the catalog for me. And I saw him on this tour. I saw him with Huey and with Ricky on guitar right alongside Gary. I thought it was great. They were energetic. This album has got tons of fire, great songs on here. You know, That's How I Like It kicks ass. Dead Man Walking is terrific. They had a mild hit in Red, White, and Blue, which I literally thought, because this came after, this is the 9/11 time. I thought that was going to be a staple in the Skynyrd live set forever. And after like 2 years, it disappeared, right? Because they didn't push the song enough. It was a mild hit here. And they just, right after this tour, they just went back to playing the same old songs from the 70s. And I get it. That's what everybody knows. But It's almost like the band were resigned to the fact that nobody's buying their new music. We're going to keep doing new albums. We understand nobody's going to buy them or listen to them. But when we go out and tour, we'll just play the hits that everybody wants to hear because people don't want to hear new music. It's sad.
Did you ever think though what "Give Me Back My Bullet" really needs? What what would possibly improve that is Kid Rock. I'm sure we all thought that, didn't we?
Is that who it is that's on that song? Because obviously, I mean, I heard it on YouTube is where I listened to this album, and I didn't investigate further because I was just a little bit upset by it. And I'm not a hardened fan, and it's not an awful version, but it didn't need it, did it? No. It's the low point. That's actually why it didn't push to being my favourite too. Is because when you put a song like that on it and it closes on it, that's the flavour you've got when you leave it. You're like, rest of it, really, really good. Really good.
Really strong. Yeah, this if anybody's going to take anything away from this episode is that if you're one of those people who kind of have the opinion that there was never a need for Lynyrd Skynyrd after the plane crash, and that they're a glorified cover band, and why bother listening to any of these 90s and up albums because it's never going to be the same. Well, it's not the same. However, it's the same thing. I say the same thing with Molly Hatchet. It's like, Molly Hatchet has been playing forever with no original members, but their original music is really good. It's like if you can get past the whole what the name is on the album and just listen to the songs, it's really good kick-ass Southern rock. That's what this stuff is. It's like, should they have called it something different? Maybe. But, you got Johnny the brother, you got, Billy Powell's still in the band at this point in time. You still got Gary Rosington. You've got, a couple other guys who are legends of Southern rock. It's great Southern rock music. It is.
It's interesting, Pete, because what you mentioned about Street Survivors is that you think they were about to, really the trajectory was just going to go through the roof. I'm not particularly going to argue against that. But I do wonder if 5 decades down the line, if they would still even be a band now. Yeah. With all the interpolitics and, the relationships that were in there and how fiery it was at certain points. If we'd even have a band now that are out there doing the classics, the justice that they do. Never mind the fact that, I went to see them on the God and Guns tour. I wanted to hear songs from that album, please. Didn't really do that. However, the show was phenomenal. I went away happy, not having heard the songs I went there going, hoping to hear, because they were just so good. So it really didn't matter. And I actually wonder if we've ended up with the best of both worlds. And obviously, tragedy is never a good thing. And I would never wish any of the things that have happened on this band, because it's not just the plane crash. It's the whole story is just, gut-wrenching. But what they still do now, wow, it's great. It's really, really good.
I mean, they tour relentlessly here, and they either sell out or damn near sell out everywhere they go. That's why they keep touring, because they make a lot of money out on tour. They're like the band you expect to see coming around every summer. It's like, to me, I've seen Skynyrd many times over the last decade, and it doesn't seem like summer without going to see an outdoor Lynyrd Skynyrd show in the middle of the summer. It kind of goes hand in hand. And for as many people as I hear complaining about, they should give it up, why it's a tribute band, whatever, there are 10, 15,000 people every night going to see Lynyrd Skynyrd, no matter where they play. So obviously the people who are complaining speak the loudest, but the general perception is that, hey, Skynyrd still is great live. I still want to go hear them play it sucks that there's hardly any original members left, but they still sound great. They kick ass, and I want to hear those songs. I mean, it's an argument and it's a discussion that'll forever go on. That's just about Skynyrd. We're talking Journey, Foreigner, all these old bands who have had members come and go or die, and they continue on because there are people who are just like, if it's not the original lineup, it's not the same. I think as long as you, the listener, the fan, get enjoyment out of it, whether it be the new music or going to see them live, playing your favorite songs, why shouldn't the band continue on? They got to make a living, right?
Yep, absolutely.
People can choose not to, right? That's what it is. But people are very vocal about stuff like this. And it's like, well, if you don't agree with it, just drop it. Don't listen. Don't watch.
There are plenty of bands out there that have the majority of their membership that's still original. that are not doing as good shows as the one that I saw by Lynyrd Skynyrd.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. Yep. But there'll always be the naysayers, I guess. So that's their right.
That goes for everything. So
yeah.
sometimes it's me.
Yeah. I will say, Steven, I'm pretty happy that you got a lot of enjoyment out of this whole assignment here. This is pretty good.
Yeah, it's interesting because in recent weeks we've done the Doobie Brothers, which was genuinely new to me, other than discovering that I did know 2 or 3 of the songs on the album that we covered, and discovering that I really didn't like it very much. I mean, I didn't hate it. I really didn't like some of it, but it didn't connect with me at all. And the ones that I did know were not the strongest songs on the album for me, even though they've been massive hits, and that's why I know them. Bat Out of Hell is what it is. You love it or loathe it would appear to be, even from the comments underneath the show we did. It's that kind of album. And more people love it than hate it, I may add. So there you go. But this was a real pleasure. I expected it to be. I went in expecting this to be a lot of fun. And I have really wrestled with my choices for this, because I kind of felt wrong for not choosing anything at all from the first 5 albums to talk about, because that is where the story is. That's where the band come from. That's the band that most people love. That's the songs that people know. And yet, that's not where my favourite 2 albums came from. And after that, I just couldn't find a place for any of those albums because, well, they're never going to be my least favourites. And they're not my wild card. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it.
You did okay, Simon.
Fantastic.
You played along very well today.
I have been winding him up all week on Twitter. I think he expected me to come along and give this a really hard time, and I really haven't.
No, not at all. No, I'm pleasantly surprised.
I know you've got ears. I know you've been doing that.
But you can't miss them. So.
So coming up next week, folks, we're going to return to the ranking the songs on classic albums, and we're going to look at a very, very cool UK band and their album. The band is Magnum. On a Storyteller's Night is the classic album. So that's coming up next week for all you Magnum fans. Stay tuned. It'll be a fun one. So we got a lot of great, great songs on that album. So we're going to try and figure out how we rank those songs. So that'll be coming up next week. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, please follow these 2 guys on Twitter. I avoid Twitter, but they're creating all sorts of mayhem out there on the internets with quite a few people who watch the channel. So they will give all little tips and insights into what we're going to talk about next Saturday, I'm sure, during the course of the week. So stay tuned for that and more here on the channel. Tune in tomorrow. We've got Ranking the Albums coming in tomorrow. We've got George Lamy and Rick Labonte and myself will be ranking the catalog of Flying Colors. So that's coming up tomorrow. And we'll see everybody on Monday with the Hudson Valley Square. So visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. For Simon Bray and Steven Reid. I almost said Stephen Ray and Simon Bray. And Stephen Bray. See, getting late in the day. I've had one of those days, folks. So thanks for watching, everybody. For Simon and Stephen, I am Pete. Have a good one. We'll see you next week here on the UK Connection. Take care.